2.
Sorry. Well, welcome to Leadership 101. This is a 6-week course on the principles of leadership. Each session that we have is a standalone with different topics introducing the concept of leadership. Lots, of course, can be said in aspects of leadership. This is Leadership 101, so it's kind of giving you a bird's eye view or certain topics, aspects of leadership. And we're hoping that within each session there is 2 or 3 good takeaways that we can take and develop, adapt unto ourselves. And so today we have 2 speakers. John Coffman is going to be our first one, and I want him to come and share with us Leadership 101.
Thank you, sir. Well, good evening. I am honored to be here with you all and to be asked to speak. I am John Coffman. If you don't know, here's a little bit about me. I work for the United States Navy. I am a change and innovation expert. It's my job to help with change management and innovations within my area of operation in the shipyard that I work. And I'm currently on track and in the final stages of my Master of Science in Management and Leadership. Mm-hmm. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit more about, I guess what was touched on last week was the difference between a manager and a leader, was touched on a little bit. We're going to break that down a little bit deeper, and we're going to say what the difference is and why does it actually matter for us to know that difference. So in my position, I've worked with visionary leaders who have this great idea for the future. They just want it to take place. They want it to occur. And they're just so inspiring. But I've also worked with highly skilled and detail-oriented managers who can just get things done. And both are essential, but they're not really synonymous. So we're going to do a little icebreaker. We're going to do a little icebreaker here. And I'm going to say a word, and anybody, it's open floor. I want somebody to just shout out the first thing that comes to your mind. So here's the little test. Blue.
Color.
Ocean.
Pizza. It came to my mind.
There's always one. There's always one. No, it's okay. It's
I
okay.
understand.
We got creative thinkers.
Sky. The sky.
Sky. All right, let's go with another one. Car.
Chevy.
Tires. Travel.
Chevy, tire, wheels, travel.
Sky.
Sky.
As in blue sky.
Tesla.
The next word was car.
Business term.
Blue sky. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now for the next 2 words, we're going to write down some of the ideas. I'm going to use 2 different colors. I'm actually going to use blue. Management. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Process.
Process.
Policies.
Organized.
Pieces.
Sorry for my chicken scratch.
Okay, looks good.
All right. Leadership.
Vision.
Vision.
Guidance. Guidance. I would say.
Example.
Good job.
You got something. I can see it.
It's somewhere there.
Trying to find it.
It'll come up later.
Okay. So, from what we can see on the board right now, do you think management and leadership are the same?
No.
No.
I can read it.
So let's get into why they're different. Maybe we kind of realize that they're not exactly the same, but some people do think that management and leadership are synonymous terms. But but they are not. What is a manager? Let's break this down. Managers have a primary focus of execution, administration, and control. Execution. They want to make sure that processes occur efficiently. They want to make sure that policies are enforced. Standard operating procedures are followed. Every I is dotted and every T is crossed. And they want to deliver objectives that they are given. They're given tasks, and they're saying, okay, got to get this done. This is the time frame. This is how many people I need to do it. These are the resources I need, and go. And you do this, and you do that, and you do this. That's what they do. They maintain order in the system, in the organization, in whatever they're doing. They maintain the order, and their whole job is to help minimize risks, to ensure that risks don't overcome operations.
That's good.
They use what we call hard skills, things like organization, procedures, positional authority. Hard skills are things like tying your shoe. It's something that you can do. Things that managers care about are things like project timelines, budget adherence. They gotta make sure that every penny goes to the place it's supposed to go. And if they overcharge the budget, they're accountable to that. And they gotta make sure that the people that are supposed to be working in their system are where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. And if they're not, they hold them accountable. Now let's talk about a leader. What is a leader?
I got my word.
What's your word?
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder. I love that. Leaders focus on vision. They focus on influencing others, and they focus on developing others. Leaders work to inspire individuals and teams towards a future state that may not be anywhere close to reality. They set a path, a direction for managers to follow. And they empower individuals to be able to walk down that path. Leaders embrace risk instead of trying to minimize risk and make sure that it doesn't affect their system. They're saying, oh, okay, I know that's a risk, but hey, let's try that and see what happens. Managers don't really like that most of the time. And they drive change. They drive innovation. They drive a future state, again, that may not be a reality. They use soft skills, things like emotional intelligence, knowing how people feel about the way that you are acting, the way you are talking, the way you are leading. They care about that. They want to know the climate of their organization, of the people, their followers. They do things like storytelling. They tell stories. They get people involved in the story and get their minds to grasp it and get their hands to do it. They inspire them from start to finish. Things that leaders care about are things like vision casting. They want to make sure that everybody knows their vision for the future, that this is the desired state that they're going to achieve. And you can get on board or not, that's your choice, but someday they're going to get there. They focus on mentoring other people. They want to develop the skills in you to make sure that you can come along with them, come along for the ride. And in some cases, they mentor you to develop skills that they don't have. They develop in you confidence to utilize your expertise. And they drive innovation. They want change to happen. To them, if something isn't changing, things aren't going right. Because stagnation is not something that a leader can live with. Now let's talk about some key differences. Let's talk about the way that they approach people. We've covered this a little bit. Managers direct people. They say, Larry, go open that door. And they expect you to do it. But a leader won't approach you that way. They'll say, Larry, you know, I see this specific set of skills in you that I don't really see in a lot of people. And you see that door over there? You know, if we were to just open that door, could you imagine how much light we could let into this room? How much light you can let into this room? Just by a simple action of going and opening that door. Can you picture it? Or can you see it with me? Do
I
you
see it, yeah.
Do you see the light in the room?
I see the light.
See the light?
I see the light.
Do you see the difference of approach? They want to convince you that it's your idea, even though it's theirs. Managers ensure that you are compliant. Again, they hold you accountable to doing what you're supposed to do. Whether or not you said you would do it, you're required to follow the rules. So you're going to do it. They're going to keep you compliant. And if you're not compliant, you'll face consequences. But leaders aren't always focused on compliance. They would rather build commitment within you. They don't want you to just be a robotic rule follower. They want you to associate with the purpose. They want you to believe in the vision. They want you to be committed to the cause, not just doing it because you were told. Managers manage tasks, and leaders grow people. You could think of a leader as synonymous with a gardener. Gardeners will take a seed, and some have experience with this, they will dig a hole in the ground, they'll put the seed in, cover it, and water it, and I'm not a gardener, so I'm probably going to get some things wrong. And every seed has different requirements. Every seed will be planted at a different time of year, needs different forms, different amounts of sunlight and shade, different amounts of water. And a gardener knows this. And like that, a leader understands that about his people or her people. They know that their people that are following them have different needs, different requirements for growth, that you're not all on the same journey. You're all on the same path.
Right.
But maybe Mel is 50 feet behind Bruce. Who knows? Or maybe they're walking hand in hand. But a leader will be able to identify that. A manager is like, yep, they're both still on the path. Okay, good. They're walking. Good. Good job, guys. Let's talk about the focus of work between managers and leaders. Managers think in the short term. They think in the here and the now. They think in operational reality. But leaders, again, they're looking at that future state. Future state, future focus and vision is really what sets leaders apart. They want to attain a reality that they envision but actually hasn't taken place yet. It's not actual reality, it's idealized reality. They want it to happen. Managers lean on procedure, but leaders encourage divergent thinking. And divergent thinking is the opposite of groupthink. And groupthink, what that is say one person in a room has a lot of experience and they speak up and say, I don't think that's going to work. And everybody else in the room, though they have their own opinions, they just stay silent or they nod in agreement. They're not willing to open their mouth and say, I don't know about that. I know you have a lot of experience, but something about that seems off. But a leader will say, thank you for your opinion. Now, how about you? I can see that you have a different opinion. And I can see that you have a different thought about this. What you got? They'll allow that divergent thinking to take place because they know that that's where growth happens.
Yeah.
Managers delegate responsibility. It's not just about delegating tasks, they delegate responsibility. So oftentimes you'll find that managers will say, all right, you're responsible for this. And then if it goes right, they get the credit. And if it goes wrong, you get the blame. But a leader does it a little opposite. They want to inspire action in you.
Yeah.
So the way that they'll do it is if you are responsible for it, they'll share the credit with you. And if it goes wrong, they will take the blame. And they'll shield you from blame. That's what a real leader will do. Let's talk about their decision-making style. Managers, when they're faced with a tough decision or a critical decision, they're gonna, 95% of the time, they're gonna go right back to what protocol says. What does the standard operating procedure say? What does the manual say? That's what we're gonna do. But leaders are gonna challenge the status quo. They're gonna say, I know this is what it says we're supposed to do in this situation, but what if we try it this way? What if we just try this one little thing right here and see what happens? Because they like to tolerate ambiguity. They're comfortable with the unknown. It's okay if the answer to a question is, well, it depends. Or let's find out. But a manager will seek predictability. They're like, it's gotta be on the checklist. If it's not on the checklist, I have trouble with that. So now that we understand the differences between managers and leaders, let's talk about why we need to know. Why does it even matter to us? Why should we care about this at all? It's because both are needed.
Yeah.
We need managers to help us sustain efforts, to maintain operations, to keep things flowing the way they're supposed to flow, to make sure the dam doesn't get clogged with trees and branches and mud. But we need leaders to transform the way we do things, to say, this is a valley, there's a river going through it, let's build a dam so that we can provide water and electricity to the thousands of people that could move in here. Imagine what we could do, what kind of community we could build if we were to just put a dam right there. Here's another analogy. Imagine a car. And if you were to think about the car as an organization, which is just a group of people getting together to accomplish some kind of purpose, the body of the car, the wheels of the car, the seats and the steering wheel and all these kinds of things, these are the employees. They're the thing that make the car a car. Without them, it's not a car. That's the employee. A manager is the engine of a car. The manager is what makes the car go from point A to point B. They make it drive forward. But the leader is the GPS of a car. They're the one that sets the direction for where the car is going to go. They decide what point A and point B look like. They say, point A, it's where we are. Point B, that's where we're going to go. But point Z, that's really where it's at. And I don't know about you, but how many of you use your GPS and think about that a lot more than you think about your engine? I do. The only time I think about my engine in my car is if some kind of funny sound is happening or I need an oil change. Other than that, almost all the time I'm setting the GPS to take me to the nearest restaurant closest to where I'm at, the nearest coffee shop, grocery store, to take me home after I get there to figure it out. That's what I use GPS for. That's what a leader does. Sets direction, sets a future state that hasn't happened yet. So this is something that we need to develop, all of us. We, if we are leaders, need to develop managerial skills. And if we're managers, we need to develop leadership skills. So if you're a manager, You should be working on how do you cultivate a vision? How do you build influence? How do you influence others? What does influence really look like? How do you develop other people and empower them and help them to grow? And if you're a leader, you should be focusing on gaining managerial skills, learning how to execute your vision, to administer operational requirements, and to control the accountability of your system, of your process, whatever you're doing. Why? Because you need to promote balance within yourself and whoever's following you. You have to have balance. Both are important. You can't have managers without leaders. And leaders without managers is just somebody yelling into the wind. Somebody's got to get it done. Somebody's got to have a vision for what it looks like in the end. So here's the 3 takeaways. If you want to write these down, go ahead and write them down. Number 1, managers maintain and leaders innovate. Both are vital.
Right.
Now say that again. Managers maintain, but leaders innovate. And both are needed.
Right.
Number 2, understanding the difference between managers and leaders helps you to become a more intentional leader. You're not just trying to make things happen and not really understanding where you're going and constantly experimenting and failing. There is value in that, but if that's all you ever do, you're never going to get anything done. So if you are wanting to be intentional in your efforts, you have to know how to be both a manager and a leader. And every leader, here's number 3, must develop.
What was number 2 again?
Number 2, understanding the difference
Okay.
between management and leadership helps you to lead more intentionally. Everybody got that? All right, number 3, every leader must develop managerial skills, and every manager must develop leadership skills. You have to find balance. You have to find balance. So now we've got a lot of experience in the room, a lot more than what I have. So I would like to open the floor for open discussion, for any comments or additions to this topic and this thought process. Floor is open. Anybody? Yes.
Just an interjection here.
Mhm.
You can have a sales manager. You can have a production manager. They come from 2 different worlds. Oftentimes they butt heads.
Mhm.
So it takes a general manager to keep the peace between them.
Sure.
But I had this experience in a company, and then the final piece was there was a vending department. And so the manager of the vending department answered the phone on every call, and nobody ever called him to tell him all the equipment was working fine. So every single call that came to the vending department was negative. I found it interesting that to deal with the people that were managing that department were very negative people.
Yeah.
It's interesting how far you can really break those things down. Now, those were all managers.
Mhm.
The leader, he was over in the corporate office trying to keep all the pieces going. Anyway.
Well, you bring up a good point. It would have been if the manager who was in charge of the vending would have known how to develop his people, he could have inspired a climate of positivity versus negativity. Every call you get is negative. How do we turn this around and make this a good place to work? So I'm not always having people leaving. They come in and 2 months later they're gone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's what you're gonna have. Anybody else?
I got the thought, first of all, I was really happy you brought those both together at the end because neither of them are successful
Alone.
just as that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you can tell someone, man, you got to get really, really solid management, and they're not going to do a bunch of anything. And someone's like, man, you've got to just be really loosey goosey, you know, and they'll float away.
Right.
You know, and it brought my mind back to many years ago. I managed a print shop in downtown Seattle, and I had a saleswoman who worked for me, and in the production shop, in the print shop there, detail was so critical. It was absolutely so critical. And so when an order would come in, we needed to know every little piece, and we had an order form to fill out. And it was a laundry list of everything, you know, and it would start out with the paper, what direction you want the grain of the paper to be, you know, and the ink and the color, and you know your color numbers, and then you've got to know what order, you know, you're going to print it, you know, the blue first, the yellow first. You've got to, all these little details have
Right.
to be there, and obviously the simple things like, well, how many of these do you want and when do you want them, you know, and without that, the production team would go nuts. They'd look at something and it's not there. It's like I can't breathe. I don't know what to do next. And this saleswoman, she would be out there in downtown Seattle gathering up work, and she'd come running into the front lobby there where we had people, and she would throw down scraps of paper. And these are the orders.
Mm.
And my temptation as a manager was, I don't remember her name, it's like, fill out the forms. Don't go out and get any more work. Fill out the forms, because if you don't, we're not gonna be able to do this right.
Right.
But then also my leadership and wanting to see the business prosper, and I know that it would only do so if she's out there writing scraps of paper
Mm-hmm.
and not wasting her time. And it's like, I can take care of the details.
Right.
And so I would find myself, I would say, okay, we've got, you know, you've got $5,000 worth of orders right here. The owner's gonna be happy. I can spend 10 minutes and translate that into something that the shop can use.
Right.
And she can get out there and do what she does and write down things as people are talking, and maybe even in shorthand, for goodness sakes. Or I could frustrate her and make her do what she's not going to be able to do, and like you say, and I'll lose her. That to me is really the balance.
Right.
And it's like, I couldn't change her, I couldn't change what needed to be, but I could be the change.
Right.
And so me as a manager, being open to that sort of stuff, and it's not just, and you know, leaders are not just dreamers.
Right.
You're the wind in the sails, as it were. And I've said enough.
Very good point. Where I work, working for the government, extreme detail is, it's just, oh, it's everywhere. You can't escape it, right? It's ubiquitous. So I can relate to where you're coming from. And it's funny because they do use these terms synonymously. They'll call the entire management team leaders, but only about, it's the organization has about 15,000 people in it, and you know, maybe 2% of that are actual leaders, and not all of them have positions of authority. They're people who work side by side with other people at low levels and guide them through work and develop their peers, and sometimes even coach up to their managers who don't know necessarily how to do something. Just because you're a technical expert and you're a good manager doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good leader. So,
In fact, I'm the same way on that. I had a director, and when I started working with him, he told me once, he says, I've got your back. He says, you're going to be with me. And then he says, you've got to have my back. And there were so many times he would call me into his office, he'd close the door, and he's like, I've got to put together a memo for Bill Gates, or I've got to get ready for a meeting with somebody high, and it's like, help me, Mel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he had certain skills,
Right.
and he knew that I would be able to add to that.
Yeah.
And if it was like a person, and like you say, I became his leader. And I worked with the guy for almost 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I never wanted to pass him, because it's kind of like Paul and Silas.
Sure.
What did Silas do anyway? Made Paul successful.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Anybody else before I turn it back over to Bruce? Any other comments, thoughts, questions?
We want Bruce.
We want Bruce. All right, I'll erase the board and I'll get out of the way here. You want the TV, right?
Yeah. Excellent job, John. Thank you. Appreciate the dovetail of the importance of management and leadership, and then at the end, managers need to develop leadership and leadership not. So, before we go forward, leadership management, one is probably more predominant versus the other, but if you were to categorize yourself more towards leader, more towards manager, which one would you lean towards?
I made my money by being a manager. I kept my job by being a leader.
Excellent, okay.
I would lean more towards leader.
Leader?
I'm not always the best with being organized, but I always have an idea for a future state that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
I would lean towards management because I'm more organized. And I prefer structure.
Structure. Big on structure. Okay?
Leader.
Leader. Why is that going on?
Well, I would say leader because every time that I remember that since I started teaching Sunday school, I often later the kids were doing the things that I was doing. I mean, that's kind of like a image of me. So, I'm the leader. I just feel like, oh, I do.
I think I would say that we're not just necessarily talking about a business or corporation. Larry made the comment as far as he is more of a leader, his wife more of a manager. I think we also have to understand that even within our home, not just a corporation and the business or whatnot, but even in our home, there's need for leadership and there's need for management. What happens if you have two leaders in the home?
Conflict.
Well, may not be quite as smooth. What happens if you have two managers at home?
Great organization. Everything's clean.
I was just going to say, who does the dishes?
You, Mel, you.
And so it's good to understand leadership management and the fact that they work together in order to do the task and achieve the goal. I want to spend a little bit of time here on discussion on the attributes of a leader. That is to talk a little bit about the mind and the character of a leader. Again, this in our Leadership 101, this isn't a lecture per se, it's a transference of information, trying to learn and gather information. So if you have a pressing question, go ahead. You're not going to scare me. So I wrote this down. Others in the aspect of leadership. We're talking about leadership 101. So in the area of leadership, what does this statement say to you? What does it mean? Others may, I may not.
Some conviction that you have? Maybe.
Conviction that you have? under the auspices and umbrella of leadership topic. Others may, I may not.
Responsibility comes with sacrifice.
Yes. Yes.
I have to hold myself to a higher standard.
Yes. Yes. So if we're going to talk about, and we mentioned it here, the attributes of a leader, the mind and the character of a leader. So within the attributes, within the mind and the character of a leader, one of that aspect is, because I'm a leader, it's not rules and regulations, but I may not do some things. Why? Because I'm a leader. And as a leader, you're bringing leadership, and the wake in which which comes behind you affects other people. So others may, I may not. Why can't you do it? Because I'm a leader, and I've got to be mindful of what I do, because there's people following.
The other side of that is others don't, I must.
Others, yes. Because I'm a leader, I have to stand up. And so when we talk about leadership, and again, there are many definitions. John did a great job. One aspect here, leadership, the ability to inspire in achieving a shared vision or goal. Some point here, leadership is a decision, not a reaction. Because a leader is not going to react at something. He thinks others may, I may. I have responsibility as a leader. So I'm not just going to react to something. I'm going to act because I'm a leader. I'm thinking through the process. Leadership, the ability to inspire in achieving a shared vision or goal. The bigger picture here. Leadership focuses on motive and character. And so I'm looking at a bigger picture. I'm not reacting. Anybody can react. But as a leader, you want to make sure that you act, because it's going to affect others. Leadership talks about the shared vision and goal. There's a bigger picture here. And so we have to think differently as a leader. Are you with me on that?
Yep.
If you're in leadership, you're not above, you're ahead. This is talking about the attitude and the mindset. Above is condescending or elitism. Some people think of leadership. They want to be in leadership because they're in front and they're better than someone else. That's not what we're talking about here at all. We are not above, we're ahead. Ahead being you're bringing people with you. And because you're bringing people with you, you have to be mindful of what you do. Others may, I may not, because there are people who are following. Okay? And so I asked this question, the difference between an influencer and a person of influence. An influencer is someone who is a promoter of themselves in a desire to be popular in order to gain more followers. Some people think that a leader is an influencer. Well, this definition by way of influencer is all about who? Self. Me! Here I am. Look at me. But a person of influence is a promoter of ideas for the progression of a common goal. When we talked about the definition of leadership. They're assisting in excellence. I've used that many times, years and years ago. Assisting in excellence. So we're here to help people excel towards an achieved goal or vision. For them to step up and become better as a person. The goal is to grow their followers. Not have followers follow them, but to grow them to be a better person. To function in the character and qualities that they have. Are you with me?
Sure.
Understanding the different perspective. And I think that in this case, I'll give you an example. I used to work as a barista And there's one time I'm on the till, and the shift lead was right next to me working on the bar, making drinks, and it was an insignificant, I forgot if it was a question or something happened, and it was minor at best. But my manager was right behind, walking around, and my shift lead used this as an opportunity to embarrass me. And I didn't say anything until after the manager left, and it wasn't too busy. And then I leaned over to her and I said, "Why would you say that in front of the manager?" She was trying to have influence with the manager.
Sure.
It was all about her. I said, "Why would you say that?" And I asked questions, and I said, who looks good in that situation? Well, she does. She wasn't thinking of me. She was thinking of herself in order to make a better influence. I said, wouldn't it have been better for you to, because it was insignificant, it's not a big deal. I said, wouldn't it have been better to have waited if it was a big deal and then to talk to me? She thought about me about that. She appreciated, because then she would have my best interest at heart. Because several weeks later, I'm not sure if it was several weeks or maybe a month or so, something took place that I very well could have said something that would not make her look good at all. But I waited until no one was around, and I brought it to her attention. And all of a sudden the light went on, because she knew I was interested in her development and her looking good. And that changed her. And then there was several other circumstances in the store that she followed that example. She left and went into another career. And I remember her coming back in conversation, and she brought that up, the fact that I would look for her best interest. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about an influencer or a person of influence. If you're a leader, you're looking at the development of other people, not to embarrass them. And so we go here, the difference between to manipulate or to motivate. To manipulate, getting something for yourself, is always me perspective, okay? Leveraging others for achievement and promotion. So then you use other people to make myself look good, and I get the pat on the back. Whereas a leader is seeking to motivate. I want you to get the aspect of the attributes within a leader. They're thinking differently. Promoting the team or teammanship, team membership. So we're in this together, okay? Together. We're individuals, but we're together. We're looking at a bigger picture. That's what a leader does. And so we're endeavoring to motivate by example, but also to understand that we are working together. So we're not trying to cut each other apart. We're trying to help one another to achieve the common vision and the common goal. Does anybody know someone who may lean towards being a manipulator?
I'm not giving names.
No name.
I've had probably over 500 examples where I work of manipulators.
Yes, because most people want to be an influence, and they're looking after who? Themselves. A leader does not think of himself. If you're going to be a leader, you're thinking of others. You're others focused. You're looking at the teammanship, the camaraderie, the development, and moving forward towards a common goal and vision. It's a different way of thinking, okay? And so here I've written down here very quickly 7 attributes of a leader. There's no doubt many attributes that we can mention, but here are just a few, because I want you to catch the mindset of a leader. And this, again, this applies not just in a corporation or on the job, although it's easy to distinguish, but also in the home. a leader in the home, a leader in a church, a leader in a community. They are thinking differently. A great takeaway is not me, my, and I. A leader talks about us and we, in the vision that is set here. Okay, so number one, a good leader attempts to make friends, not enemies. Attribute of a leader. You got to be a people person. Okay? So it doesn't matter who you meet. And again, you understand there's different personalities. That would be a whole subject, would it not? The different personality types. Wow. And let's not go down that road. Because there are some personalities, and I don't know, you ever meet someone, okay, let's be honest, ever meet someone and there's just something about them that you want to slap them? Not advocating violence, but there's something about them that just, you just kind of, you're not attracted towards.
You would understand if you worked where I work. I'm telling you.
But a good leader attempts to make friends, not enemies. And so it's easy to get along with someone that is similar to you. But a leader is trying to build a bridge towards everyone. How much more so when you have a personality type that is irritating. But you're seeking, how can I build a bridge? Because we're trying to win friends, influence friends. We're trying to be a leader. We're outward versus inward. It's not about me, this person makes me feel uncomfortable, this person I don't want to be around. But as a leader, I want to go beyond me, myself, and I. The mindset of a leader. And they're looking at, how do I be a person of influence? What can I do to contribute and help this person, assist this person in their development, in their goals, for the goals of the corporation? Number two, a leader who listens well to his subordinates. Now, right under subordinates, I put down team members, because traditionally we think of leadership as leaders, superior, versus subordinates, less than. But that would be talked about, being not above, but ahead. Okay? So leaders listen well. Just because you're a leader doesn't put you above. Communication is the goal, verbal or nonverbal. As a leader, well, they didn't say anything to me. Well, if you were paying attention, they were saying lots to you. They weren't doing verbal, they weren't talking, but if you're paying attention to what they're doing, they were communicating to you. So as a leader, you want to communicate. So you pick up on verbal and nonverbal communication. Why? In order to build a bridge. In order to help them beyond their place, their flaws. Now, we all have flaws. Aren't you thankful that there is someone in your life that helped you become a better person?
Yes.
Well, we want, as leaders, we want to help people, sometimes willingly, sometimes subconsciously, to be a person. So it's our attitude as a leader, that we're not thinking negative. We're listening to them. We're trying to help them. My father would say this many times. What you're doing speaks so loud, I can't hear a word you're saying. So leaders are listening, not just in words. I'm listening to you, but we're mindful of people's, what they say, what they don't say. And we convey that verbally and non-verbally. What's a verbal way in which we can communicate that we're paying attention?
Listen.
Gotcha.
Got you. I got you. Mel talked about that. It's another way you can say to communicate that we're listening. I hear what you're saying. That's it. Great point. Okay. And when someone is talking, what does this say?
Oh dear.
Okay. I am communicating that you're talking too much and you need to keep moving because I'm done.
Or maybe that I don't agree with what you're
Or I
saying.
don't agree with you and I'm trying not to lose my temper because you're wasting my time. Again, we got to communicate, verbal and nonverbal. And so we got to be mindful that if we're in perhaps a confrontation, someone whose personality or they're having a bad day and they want to share their bad day with you. Ever had it happen? Someone got up on the wrong side of the bed and they're miserable and they want to share their misery with everybody around them. Okay, you can't react, we act as leaders. And so the instances is all of a sudden, or our stance, well, we got to think, okay, we got to dissipate this. Questions, comments? Is that good?
Good.
Number 3, a patient leader remembers that people's responses vary according to their nature, temperament, and level of development. People are not you. You are you. And people, when something happens, we just know what to do, or we do what we do, but they are not. And so you have to allow be patient and allow people to be themselves as you lead them and help them from one status to another in their achievement and goals and development. Some people are quick, some people are not so quick. Some people are sharp. Some people it takes them, they're not picking it up quite as fast. You can't be impatient, okay? People all have are at different levels or different grades. Yeah.
A term we use all the time is meet people where they're at so you can get them to where they need to be.
Say it again. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Meet people where they're at so you can get them to where they need to be.
Yeah. Amen. Excellent. Excellent. So a patient leader understands that, of course, we're on the university level, but someone is on college level, or someone is not even high school. They're in elementary mode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not going to be disrespectful, but we're going to be patient and help them. I think the next one talks about a mature leader shows respect for others, regardless of their race or rank. We're not judging people, okay? Things take time. Allow situations to unfold. We don't want to be reactionary. Though there may be urgency, don't be too hasty. Okay? So mature leader, we're not going to jump on something. Some things, okay, don't understand. There's a balance. As a leader, something need to be taken care of. But as a mature leader, we understand that some things will resolve itself. We don't want to be micromanaging.
There is a management technique to get people to do things called creative fire.
Okay.
You know, and it's not necessarily a real positive thing. And after a while, people will realize that you're generating that sense of urgency, and they'll push back on that really hard.
Really?
Yeah.
That's true. I'm a basketball official in sports, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what number you are, how tall you are, what color you are, what position you are, how good you are. I'm going to treat everyone the same. And when I'm doing a lower level of game, I'm respectful towards them. And I end up helping a little bit, maybe a little bit of coaching, a little bit of management as a leader. And if your attitude is respectful, people appreciate it. Now, okay, let's be honest. Who enjoys being disrespected. Ouch. Okay, and every one of us can say that at some point in time, someone made comments or did things that were disrespectful to you. How did that make you feel?
Angry.
Angry.
One of my hot buttons.
Yeah, exactly. So a mature leader is someone who's going to be respectful, even though someone else is not respectful towards you. Remember, a leader acts, it doesn't react. And so people will always find your buttons. Others may, I may not. I'm not going to react. Most people will do it, and the easiest thing is to do it, but I'm a leader, so I'm not going to react, even though you're pushing your button, and you deserve a good smack. But I'm a leader, so I'm going to act differently. I'm talking about 7 attributes of leadership in the mind, in the character of a leader. Okay, number 5, a wise leader inspires and motivates rather than intimidating and manipulating. This is the whole aspect. We talked about that. John talked about it. We talked about it in our definition. A wise leader inspires and motivates. And so people must have the want to. So if I'm going to lead, people have an option, a choice, if they want to follow. Mel touched on that last week, and no doubt he will again. People have to want to follow you. And so you have to be palatable enough for people to follow. You see what I'm saying? Now, you're going to step on some toes because a leader has to lead. They have to do what they need to do. Others may, I may not. Some things others aren't doing and I must do. But our perspective is one of inspiring, okay? Letting each person run their own race, the passing of the baton. So we allow them to develop. We want to encourage them, inspire them, knowing that they are going to do it maybe a little bit different than the way you would do it, okay? But you're endeavoring to help them develop. Okay, great example of this in the home.
Frank Sinatra, I did it my way.
I did it my way. Yes, and that wouldn't be a good leader. All alone. I think a great example I think of is a mother and a daughter. And a little child, little daughter, kid in the kitchen. You know, they want to mimic. They want to mimic their mom and be a mom. It's just the way it is. Boys are different than girls. Let's not go down that road if you're confused. But a boy is going to pick up a toy, a Tonka toy, or he's going to zoom with the cars. And a girl's going to pick up a doll, or a girl's going to, and she wants to follow around mom. And I see it when mom doesn't want 6-year-old Sue in the kitchen. She's going to make a mess. Of course she's going to make a mess. She's 6 years old. But a wise leader is going to help. Going to help be a leader to that little daughter and be an example. And there might be little things that they can do. I've got many nephews and nieces, and I'm working on the car, or I'm doing something mechanical or outside, and I'll get them to come along and, okay, I want you to push the lawnmower. Well, they're only going to push it for 5 feet. No, they're done. But they're going to get them involved. Okay, you can think of examples in your life, your situation, where we can be a wise leader, inspire. We're building a bridge. We want to inspire and motivate rather than intimidate or manipulate them. Our time is clicking here. Number 6, the path of a leadership is lonely. Now, when I talk about lonely, I'm talking about when you're a leader leads. And so as a leader, it's easy to be number two, number three, to be part of a team because this is the leader. But when you're leading, you're up front. You're above. And so now nobody else is around. You've got a team, but they're looking to you for leadership. And so this is an attitude, a perspective. A leader is self-motivated. Okay? You are your own picker-upper. Whereas a leader, you're going to encourage people, encourage them, and being motivated, inspiring them. Who inspires you? You have to find your own inspiration. Part of that is perhaps the success of a team or the development of the team. But you have to be a leader, your own picker-upper. So what would you think would be good for you? What would be something that you could do to inspire you? To help you be a picker-up, for you, what do you do to pick yourself up?
One of the things I've done most of my life is I read biographies of either great people or people that aren't so great.
Yeah.
And try to understand how it's possible that one person can make such a difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's encouraging. I like to read stories of people who started, who failed repeatedly, and then they just kept on going.
Einstein.
Kept on going.
Edison.
People who started at 67 and 72. Who was it? 72. Was that
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Colonel Sanders.
72 years old. Okay, and just people that kept on, would not quit. They kept on, keeping on. That's a good inspiration. Number 7, a teachable leader. This is a very important quality, an attribute of leadership. A teachable leader eagerly probes for truth, learned by others regardless of their status. Leaders understand that they do not know it all. Okay, let's remove that right now. Just because we're involved in leadership does not mean that you are the be-all, end-all. You need a team. And a wise leader will have on their team people who are better than they are in some areas. You do not need to be the kingpin. There's great wisdom and revelation right in that statement.
Yeah, I was hoping that at some point you were going to say something where I could give
Yeah.
this example.
Yes,
You just
please.
did it. Thank you. On a team, if the star becomes the leader, it often creates nothing but problems.
Mhm.
And I've heard many, many times where people will say, we were a good team until they brought on a star.
Because what is the star's focus?
Typically on self and
Exactly.
their own ability.
Influence, wants to be the influencer. It's all about me.
Yeah.
A leader is not focused on me. It's focused on us and we and the team. In sports, we've got a one-man show. Okay?
That's not a leader.
That's not a leader. That is not a leader. He's a good player. He's not a leader.
Yeah.
A leader is someone that makes other people look good.
Yeah.
And so a teachable, a leader, one of the 7th attribute here, is someone who's teachable, who understands that I'm still continuing to grow, even though I'm a leader. I value my team. I appreciate my team, and they are growing in their development and their contribution towards the vision and the task. They're an important part of that team.
When a leader can ask the question from the people, who wants to go with me, then grow with me.
Excellent. Say that again.
No, you've got it. A leader has a good memory.
Someone who's asking the question,
Who wants to go?
go with me and grow with me.
Yeah.
Okay? There are many examples that I'm thinking of that people like to hang around. I've been in leadership in many different aspects. And they like to hang around because I try to make them look good. because I'm trying to develop their talents, their abilities, their placement. In some areas, I would have people who would come to me and ask for me to critique them in some venues because they know I'd be honest with them, but I'd be very kind, and I would accentuate and try to draw out their qualities and make their weaknesses their strengths. A wise leader is teachable, and they are always learning. It doesn't matter how old you are, we can still learn from, Jesus talked about in the Bible, unless you become as a little child. A little child is teachable. Okay, let's not be talking about I've been in business for 114 years, and yeah, we still can learn at every level. Okay, leadership inspires others to achieving a shared vision and a goal. Did we already say this? No. I want you to notice others. Leaders inspire others in achieving a shared vision or a goal. As a leader, we aim to be a person of influence, assisting others toward excellence, versus an influencer who promotes themselves in popularity. A big takeaway today is leaders, it's about others. Okay? We're building a team. We're going in a certain direction. We are developing. And so people want to go with us and grow with us because they know if I hang around that leader, I'm going to be a better person and I'm going to be valued. And so in summary, the 7 attributes of a leader. A good leader is always friendly. Okay, what's one thing, I know our time is gone, what's one thing in which you can do that would help you to be more friendly?
More friendly?
Yeah, what's one thing you can do to help you build a bridge and be more friendly?
I'm sorry, my mind just went blank.
Just say pizza.
That's what he said earlier. It worked.
I'm just gonna say listens well, and then communication.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Something you can do.
Acknowledge people.
Acknowledge people. Acknowledge people.
Smile.
Smile. I like that.
I do have trouble sometimes smiling
Yeah.
while listening to people because I'm trying to be attentive
Yes.
with what they're saying, so I have a very
Purposeful.
serious demeanor, but I don't always just smile,
Yeah.
so I don't always look friendly.
I've got the German-Russian jaw, and so I got to remind myself, I'm not a mean person.
Jawohl.
Jawohl. Alles klar. A leader listens well to others. A patient leader remembers that everyone is different. A mature leader exhibits respect to others. A wise leader inspires and motivates others. The path of a leader is lonely. You are above. You're up front. And then a teachable leader maintains humility as they continually are learning. We are ever learning. Any questions as we close? Next Tuesday, another leadership session 101. We talk about different aspects of being a leader.
Excellent.
Just one final comment.
One final
to kind of
comment.
feed into what you're saying here. I've witnessed time and time again those who are focused on self, who are influencer, who are high performers. There's always going to be a limit to how high they can perform. Always, because they're alone. They're focused on what they can do. Now, they're not always focused on growing their talents necessarily. Maybe they are, but there's always going to be a point where they crash.
Yeah.
And they can't go any further. But a leader, somebody who's focused on others, when they reach that point of not being able to use their own ability to go forward, they've already got people around them to help them get to that over the next hurdle.
Yeah.
They don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, so a leader thinks differently, okay? I'm doing this one job, I'm very good at it, and someone will say, well, aren't you scared? If you teach other people, you disciple, you train them, you coach them, they could be better than you. And then what are you gonna do? I'm a leader, I'll find something else to do.
Copy.
Okay, I'm gonna teach them, mentor them, they're gonna do a great job, I hope they do a better job than me. I'll just move to another dimension, another realm, another aspect, and continue to grow.
It's also noteworthy that if you become too specialized in any one thing, say at work, they might pigeonhole you into that one thing for the rest of your career and won't let you move forward because
There's
you're
a
too
voice.
specialized.
There's a voice.
So,
Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next week.
all right.